what I was thinking on today's training was like the most valuable thing that we could do together was to actually generate like some properties that we can shoot out to investors and people that we have in our database. And so it's one thing to like sit here and watch me or Kevin or Kyle like talk about how to find a property. And it's another thing to go and do it yourself. So what I like to do today, I have a couple different buyer personas and buy boxes that I'll drop in the chat just one at a time. And then we'll give everyone like 8 to 10 minutes to find a property. And then what I want you to do is drop the property that you find for that person in the chat with a little bit of like a text that you would send to a client, like explaining why this is a good opportunity for them. I'll pick 1 to 2 to go over, and then we'll go over to the next property. And the real goal for this training is that by the end of this meeting, we'll all have 3 to 5 properties that we can go out to send to people in our database that might fit this buyer persona. And it's a really common, like these are people that I run into a lot from an investor perspective that are looking for additional properties. So I'll go ahead and just kind of share like the first one, which is one I just got a lead for. And so I thought that this was a good one to start with, which is just an investor that's looking for an off-market fix and flip or a value add opportunity. And so I'm just going to put that in the chat real quick. And then as you're looking for properties, if anyone has questions on how to find a property like this, like feel free just to like speak up and I can kind of share with you the way that I would do it. And what I'll say is like, for me, what I do with the guys who are looking for off markets, because off markets are challenging to source and every fix and flipper wants only off markets. They don't want anything on market. What I would do is go into my FRBO pond. I would look in my market for a property that would be a decent like flip or value add. And when I say value add, I'm saying maybe it's underbuilt for its lot size. You could see that the property is like not in great condition for the area. Like there's just some opportunity to add value on this property. And then I call those people and see if they're interested, but I actually have a buyer. Like, hey, I've got a client who's looking specifically for a property in your area. Would you be interested in selling? That's how I'm sourcing off-market opportunities. I've got a couple recently, like from that alone. So if you think like in your market and just play like you have a buyer who's looking for an off-market fix and flip or a value add opportunity, spend like 5-6 minutes looking for something through your FRBO or whatever source you like to find off markets. And then as you find something, like drop it in the chat with a text message, like you would share it with that, like a client, an investor, or someone like that. Everybody understand what we're doing, or anyone have any questions?
Sawyer, can you give us some price point parameters that you're dealing with?
Well, that's why, because it's everyone's in different markets. I was gonna leave it like a little open, like my market, you'd be looking at like the 1 to 2, like 1.5 to 2 million range, but someone in Fresno might be looking at like 500,000. So I'd say like the kind of market average, like the average house in your area, someone looking for an average property, not something super luxurious. Like it needs to be kind of a fair price that has opportunity to add significant value and sell at a profit. So I could give you what I would look for in my market, which is about like between 1.5 and 2 million. And I'd specifically be looking for something that is maybe it's a 6,000 square foot lot, but the house is 1,100 square feet, something like that, where someone could add a few hundred square feet and resell it. And then I'll look for some stuff too, and we'll drop it in the chat and go from there. But if anyone has any questions, feel free to speak up while we do this.
So to make sure that I understand, you want us to go through, pretend that we have a buyer, but as far as looking at on the MLS, that's going to be something that is active. So we're looking for additional.
No, so for this one is going to be off market. So what I would do is go into like your to follow up boss and look in the FRBO pond. Mm-hmm. And then look for a property that would be a good opportunity. So you're looking at a single family home that maybe is underbuilt or it needs cosmetic work. So something for a flipper that you could then reach out to the seller to see if they would be interested in selling off market. Just to get a little practice in sourcing off-market opportunities for an investor.
Okay.
So it's 109 right now. Let's do this until like 115, and then we'll look over a couple of properties that were found and like how we present it to an investor. And like the goal of this is 1, so we have properties to send out to some people, but then the 2, to realize like the outreach is actually a lot simpler than sometimes we think. And FRBOs, in my opinion, are one of the greatest sources of off-market opportunities. And it also makes your FRBO calls a lot more powerful because you actually are calling for a specific use case. Like you have someone looking at a property like this. Wait, Kevin just dropped one in the chat. I like what you did there, right? You didn't give the property address. Why don't you give the property address?
Because I'm a gatekeeper.
Yeah. If you get the property address, then they have it, right? They don't need you really. Most investors will still use you, but do you ever get pushback on that? Like when people are trying to come up with their pricing and stuff, do you get pushback from people who are like, hey, I need the address so I can run my comps and all that?
I don't get a huge amount, but I can tell them like, hey, I already gave them a general location a block away from downtown Carmel. I can always give them it's on Torres. It's on Torres near 8th. And that would be sufficient for most of it.
Yeah, I find sometimes when I send properties out to people, the first question after I send a text like that is, great, what's the address?
I'm more likely to go do an exterior drive-by of the property, shoot a 45-second exterior video and show and explain that to them. And I would send that text along with that video. And I feel like I would cut out a lot of that.
Yeah, I like that for sure. And then I'll share one that I found the other day. Unfortunately, the landlord or the owner got a tenant already, but I had like a couple people that wanted to buy this property and they just filled it too fast. All right, so I'll drop in the chat. This is a message I just sent to a client last week about a property I found. And so anyone else find something they think is worth sharing? Nobody? Alex, you find anything?
I'm still looking right now.
Give everyone a couple more minutes. And this is what I do when I call FRBOs no matter what, is I have a buyer in mind when I'm looking at the properties. And so that way I'm not just calling and using like the shotgun approach. I'm more of like trying to, for lack of like a better way to talk about it, I'm thinking more like a sniper, where I have like a few buyers in mind who are looking for a few different types of properties. And then when I find a property on the FRBOs that fits that, then I reach out to that homeowner instead of calling to have theoretically, would you entertain an offer if I brought one to you? And then I try to think about who do I have that might fit that. I try to identify the people in advance. So that's, I think, really helpful. And it helps me make like 20 like pointed calls instead of 100 calls where I may or may not have someone. And that's like what I've learned. I used to just put it all on a call list and call every single FRBO. And then I would get someone who's interested. And then I'd look at the property and be like, oh, this is a townhome that I don't know any investors that are going to want to buy this property. And so I would get really far, have a great conversation with someone, and then I wouldn't end up having a client for them. So it was kind of a wasted conversation. So I think like for this type of persona, it's like pretty simple. You see Kevin's text. I have a really good value add off market in Carmel. A little bit of details about the property, how much money you can put into it, and what the ARV is. I think that's a pretty great text. And if you like run the numbers on a worst case scenario, he's saying you put like 2.3 into it and you could sell it for 2.9 or 3.2. There's a lot of money right there. Mine, I kept a little more information hidden, but sent it in a follow-up text, just like, hey, are you still looking for some flips? Interesting off-market opportunity in Santa Clara, but it's in Cupertino school districts and it's a little underbuilt for the lot. Get the square footage and the lot size. And I have a price that the seller wants, which is under market value. That's kind of the way I would go about finding an off market for a person. And there's a lot of other sources. You could call expireds. You could look at for sale by owners. You could farm an area and things like that. But we have access to a for rent by owner database that I've never heard of other teams providing for their agents. And I think this is a really great way to use that database.
Mine was on members only coming soon, which is like a coming soon list on the
Sweet.
MLS too. So you can always look on there, because if they want off markets, they just mean not on Zillow.
Yeah, and that's what not on Zillow is the coming soons or the members only don't show. Like those all work for that. So yeah, good point there. It doesn't have to be an FRBO, but that's one area where other agents probably aren't looking, in my experience. So if no one else has another property to share for that, I will drop in kind of the next thing to search, which is a lead for those of us who get bigger pockets leads. This is like a really common one. I know Alex has a lot of experience with this, and it's someone looking for like a single family home that they can house hack, or anywhere from 2 to 4 units where they can find an owner's unit. And I think that those are like not super challenging to find. You can find those on your MLS. You can find those on Zillow and Redfin. And you can also find like off markets, but probably the on markets are a little easier to find. So just to be clear, this is a lead who's looking for a single family that could be a rental that they can live in, or a 2 to 4 unit complex where there's a unit they can live in and rent out the others. For this, I would say the hard part is finding something that has a vacant unit, but it's possible. But I wouldn't worry about that right now. Just find something between 1 and 4 units that could be a good opportunity from a rent perspective that someone could purchase. And keep in mind that you can use an FHA loan for anywhere up to 4 units. So I just helped the client do that on a duplex. They were originally qualified for $800,000, and they were able to actually buy something at a little over $1 million because they had a tenant in the other side. So that was really helpful for them. So here is what we're looking at there. So look for a 1 to 4 unit property that maybe a tenant can find out. Evan, how would you find the amount it would cost to renovate it and what the price would be after the flip? Kevin, you want to speak to how you go about that?
Based on experience, how much would it cost to renovate it? You need to know a couple contractors that you talk to. Hey, what's the average price for a renovation? I know in my area, if we're going nice, high quality renovation, they could probably bring it in for about $775 a square foot. If they're doing kind of a mid to low level, closer to 500. If they're going ultimate luxury, top of the line, probably 1,200 a square. So that's one way of looking at it. Realistically, it's not ever a horrible idea to just bet 30% of the acquisition value if you're really going to cheat. So,
okay, thank you. I was wondering how you guys got those numbers.
And then your after repair value, what's the highest? Because ultimately, after a remodel, this should be one of the nicest homes in the area. Mm-hmm. What's the highest price point in that general vicinity? Okay, kind of have a ballpark for that.
And just to add to that, Evan, if they're doing like a value add or adding square footage, you could actually run a comp and change the square footage number on the property for the area. So you can get an idea of if it's a 1,500 square foot house now, but they're going to make it a 2,000 square foot house, you can run those numbers and see what the other homes in the neighborhood at 2,000 square feet are. Okay. So you could get a general idea like that too. But the construction prices get a lot easier after you've done it a couple times. There's a lot of research you could do to get like average square foot. But I think, and Kevin and I have spoke about this a lot, but like the average investor, they know their numbers, right? Like you don't have to go and tell them, here's the work that needs to be done. And I've ran and got quotes for all these things. Like they have a general idea what's it going to cost them. So you can give them a pretty wide range and then they'll come in and say, oh, I could do it for cheaper, or I think it's going to cost this. Okay. So most investors really have a good hold on what their numbers are.
Okay. Thank you guys. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Alex, would you say this is your most common Bigger Pockets lead?
I don't know if it's the most common, but the house hacking thing has definitely come up plenty of times through the Bigger Pockets leads as newer investors just wanting to get started. And I've gotten a handful of them for like veterans wanting to use a VA loan and just keep their housing costs as low as possible and buy something, or new investors even who are looking to go in with friends or something to buy something. So this is a fairly common, or it was in Sacramento. I don't know if it'll be the same way here or not, but
yeah. I get them a lot in my area too. And it is usually the conversation starts as house hacking. And then I bring up the option to use an FHA loan to buy a multifamily and do it like that. Because the hard part with house hacking is like, if you've ever been to college or if you've had like roommates, you're managing personalities, which is really challenging. If you just have people in other units, a little bit easier to live instead of like sharing a kitchen and kind of running like an SRO. And so when I've explained that to people, it kind of opens that door up to, like, most people don't know that you can get a first-time home buyer's loan on a 4-unit property. The amount of money that you need are a lot different too. Sweet Nate, you got a contractor who knows the game, wants to use some hard money. That's in your wheelhouse, man. That's sweet. Now, I like Kevin's approach here. Have you seen this property? Priced super well for a single-family home in the neighborhood. Would also be very easy to transition to convert the garage into an ADU for a house hack. Excuse me. That's another option too, right? And I met a Zillow lead the other day, went toward this house that was a total, they'd had a tenant in there for 50 years, total tear down. But he wanted to, it was zoned R3, so they could build up to 5 units. And that's what he was looking at it as. He'd like to build an ADU and live in that and then fix the house, or live in the house while he fixes it up and then build an ADU and rent it out like that. So those are a lot of good opportunities too. It doesn't have to have existing units. It could just be a property where you build additional units. And it's like in California, we are very favorable to building ADUs right now. Even certain cities like San Jose right now has pre-built ADU plans that are pre-approved by the city, where you can go in and retrofit them to your structure, and they're already approved by the city. So the approval times are really short, and pre-construction costs can get pretty expensive as well. So that's something that if you kind of talk about how easy it is to build an ADU now, especially with the new laws, refer to Kyle's training on that. Stacy says San Diego is like that big time right now. No, absolutely. I think that's the way a lot of municipalities are trying to solve the housing crisis, is to encourage people to build like on their existing lots. So they're like, the California laws are trumping a lot of the local laws from a zoning perspective and like lot coverage perspective. So it's a good thing to take advantage of now. And it's a way to make a property that maybe would be cash flow negative, like if you bought a single family home, and turn it into cash flow positive without that much additional money. Alex just shared, got an off-market house hacking opportunity. Sellers planning on going on the market soon. Let me know if you're interested. 1,850 square foot home, 1,200 square foot, 3-bed, 2-bath, 600 square foot, in-law suite, 1-bed, 1-bath, and another 800 square foot outbuilding. Is this your the listing you got about to go live?
Yeah.
Sounds sweet. That's in Sacramento?
It's in Carmichael, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds like a great opportunity.
It is actually. There's a ton of potential.
5,200 seems like a decent amount of money out there for a rental.
Yeah, I mean, between the three of them, somebody would need to go through the process of converting the outbuilding. But it's actually a really cool outbuilding. It was a model for a custom log home builder.
Oh, sweet.
In their backyard.
That's cool.
So it's basically the structure of a log home build that's just not finished inside, but it's got
the structure is the hard part, right? Exactly. Once you get your structure up, and you're basically doing tenant improvement work.
It's already got an electrical panel on it that's separate. It would need sewer and water. But it's really nice. It's a really nice space. It's a good size. Very unique. You basically have a random log cabin in the back of the
farm. That's cool. 800 square feet is pretty decent size too for like a 2-bed, 1-bath. Rhonda dropped in the chat. There's also prefab modulars that are not mobile homes for ADUs. Some that are pretty local. That's a great point, right? If we can get you could get pricing off of some of these like modular home builders. You can get pricing off their sites and get a general idea of what it's going to cost to put together an ADU on a property, and those would be the cost of the unit itself, not necessarily the other costs associated with it. But that's a good way to say like, hey, you can spend $200,000 on a modular unit, and that's going to get you an extra $3,000 a month in rent, or increase your property value by this amount of money. Has anyone ever worked with one of those modular housing like ADU suppliers? I met one a couple of weeks ago at Network Group, and the dude was really cool, and seems like they have some pretty sweet products. Really, really high end.
The last time I engaged with one of those, they had like a wait time of 2 or 3 years before they could ship. So I haven't been back recently, but that was my biggest concern is the time it takes to actually get it like installed.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think the hard part, because I actually used to work for a company that did this, but we did it for low income communities. So it was like for housing projects. And one of the hard parts is they usually build these in different states. And then when you tie it in, like they want you to build it to local standards and not to like whatever state that you built it in originally. And so that was one of the hiccup points that we had, but they're getting more and more creative solutions on how to solve this. It'd be cool for us to get connected with an ADU specialist like that. I know Kyle has like someone who builds ADUs from scratch, but if we could get connected to someone who has like the modular ADUs, and we could, I know they have some cool like referral programs or something like that, but could be a cool thing to offer just from a pricing perspective to a client. And you probably put 200 grand and it might increase your property value by 500,000 when you go to resell. Seems like one of those low ticket items. All right. So great stuff on that one. Let's see. I had another one. This is one Kyle asked me to share. So I think we get a lot of mom and pop landlords that are looking just to expand and want a property that's going to be cash flow positive, like a single family home. It's a mom and pop landlord looking for another property that's a single family home rental. And so when you find a property, just like give them the address and some details and then your recommended rental rate on the property. This could be on market or off market, wherever you feel like the right source is for. Just single family home rental.
The single family home has to cash flow by itself right now?
Not necessarily. They want it to. So either that or you give like the in the future cash flow positive, like adding an ADU. So kind of similar. It can be value add or it could be single family that cash flows with a certain amount of money down. I always discourage people from single family homes as rentals, but that's me. It's a horrible idea. Why would you ever do that? You should be buying multifamily. I got a really interesting one, Kevin, at a meetup group the other day. Was a company that does, like, they're called Startup House in the Bay Area, and they buy these houses and they do single room rentals to startup founders, and they all live, they like treat it like a dorm, so it's like single room occupancies, and you can pay like per night or long-term rentals, and they have properties in like Menlo Park, Mountain View, Palo Alto, and they're looking for more properties all the time. And so like really large overbuilt single family homes where they just rent out the rooms to startup founders. And I thought that was like really interesting.
Oh, that is pretty cool.
That is cool.
Kind of a cool model, but a great client to have, right? Because they're just looking for big single family homes in high price point neighborhoods, basically. Does anybody operate in a market right now where you could buy a single family home at like fair market value and get a cash flow positive rental on it right away?
Not me.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm guessing that's. Oh well, never mind. JS just.
No, I think he's saying not. He can't find that in the Central Valley.
Yeah, I would have thought
Fresno,
Bakersfield, Modesto, but
yeah.
Alex is about to sell you a log cabin.
yeah, there you go.
No plumbing, though.
You don't need plumbings in log cabins. That's what you have an outhouse for, man.
Yeah.
All right, Kevin dropped a property in there, 1317 Military and Seaside, listed at an alarmingly low 575. Compared to the average home of $800K, could rent for $3,700 day one if you decide to fix the property up. Yeah, that's nice. I think then the investor is like, okay, what's wrong with it? Right?
The reality is it needs to be a cash purchase because they're going underwater on this one.
Yeah.
And it does have tenant problems. So you got to get rid of a tenant, which is actually counterintuitive to what I just said, but it sounded better to say it that way. But I know the also reality is that I know both me and Miguel have offered on this one already in the last 24 hours. So chances are it's going to close closer to 700. But
really,
yeah,
that's crazy. Getting a tenant, I've been dealing with that on a property in East Palo Alto. We offered on for the FHA buyer. They were going to occupy one side of the units, and we closed on that in June, and they still don't have the tenants out. It has been a nightmare.
If it's an AB 1482 issue, meaning that it's California statewide rent control, not
East Palo Alto is stricter, and they actually, they have actual free lawyers for tenants to fight evictions in the area. But this is owner occupied. It's not even like they're not buying it for an investment. They're occupying both sides of the duplex, and they still haven't been able to occupy. We're running on 9 months. So know your local market, I will say. Had no clue how challenging it would be there. Yeah, this is a good one. I think it's really hard to find a property like this. And maybe like the conversation here is when you go to find one and you can't, then you go into like, here's how we really find cash flow positive properties, like from day one, usually is by doing multifamily properties. And this kind of segues into one of the last types of buyers that I had in mind, which is the person who wants to do a 1031 exchange from a single family into a small multifamily. So 2 to 4 units. I mean, you can go above 4 units, but the way like I was looking at this is somebody that has a single family home that they own like outright, or they have like $1 million in equity built up, and they're looking for a small multifamily within a couple hours of whatever your market is, that would be cash flow positive if they put $1 million into it. So I'll drop that into the chat real quick, and then that's kind of one of the last ones we can look at, and then we can do a little mastermind around finding properties and how to send them out to clients.
Side question outside of everything that you're doing. I ran across a couple of investors with my calling on PPC as well as FSBO. Yeah, some of them don't want to provide an email address. I came across some potential properties for that particular one of the particular investors, but they want everything submitted via text. How are you guys sending that if you do it?
Text is fine, like Kevin's doing, right? Just a little bit of details. Let me know if you want more information, and then if they want more information, like, okay, I probably need an email, or I can send you a video. Like if it's close to you, like provide some real value, go shoot a video, send it over to them. And like, I wouldn't get too hung up on like the delivery method. You just can't really send them over links necessarily to like disclosures and stuff, not to their email. What would you do, Kevin?
Repeat the question. Sorry.
Client that, like an investor that she's met on PPC that is interested in properties but doesn't want to share emails. How do you communicate details on a property like that?
I'd send a text and say, when you share me your email address, I'll share you the rest of the info. I mean, if somebody's not going to share you their damn email address, good luck getting them to the closing table. They're not, they're a tire kicker.
That's what I was feeling. I feel like they are a tire kicker. The advisor was like, hey, I came across several properties, like 7, but I need an email so I can send them over to you. He's like, just send them to me via text. And I was like, are you looking for like price, square footage, location, or what do you want? He goes, I want everything. I'm like,
Hey, cook me dinner, but don't use the gas stove in order to cook it. No microwave either. I need you to, build a fire with your hands in the back. Like, no.
Yeah, it sounds like a very difficult to please client because you can't get everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, it depends on the vibe you get from the person. If you feel like they're just wasting your time, then maybe not. But like a text message isn't that hard to send, right? Like a text message with a couple of details, and then let me know if you want more information. And if they reach out for more information, just say like, if we really want to work together and you want more details, I need your email. But like Kevin said, if they're not willing to give their email, how are you gonna you're gonna need their email at some point or other, is whether you send them properties or is whether you're like, they're in contract and you're sending them documents to sign and stuff like that. You'll need their email at some point. So some people are weird about sharing their email. I share my email all over the place.
Doesn't bother me. He was like, I don't ever check it. I was like, I can understand that. Same here. Yeah. But I will send you a text message that I just sent you the list of the properties so you can take a look to see if they fit your buy box so I can narrow down the search or whatever. But he wanted...
you ever thought about asking about meeting in person?
No.
Yeah, so like maybe say like, hey, if you don't check your email, what I can do is like I'll print off some data about all 7 of these properties. Let's go grab a coffee and I'll present it to you in person. Then maybe you get an appointment and meet in person. I know it's a little like sometimes it can be dangerous to meet people in person. Do it in public.
I'm not worried about meeting with them. I am used to the backwards approach, like trying to vet him to make sure that he's an actual start cash buyer and wanting like, okay, if I come across something, I need some kind of documentation.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's one option is just to tell them you need that to work with them. And another option is see if you can turn it into an appointment and just say, hey, if you don't use your email, like I get it, let's meet in person and I'll present them to you there. And then you'll be able to tell, like if he'll meet you in person, some people just don't like the internet, or maybe he's really old and doesn't use it. If you're texting, you should use email though. I will say that.
Well, also if you guys are if we're talking about on market stuff, if you use MLS Touch, like I use MLS Touch a lot, and I'll text properties from the MLS through the MLS Touch app directly to clients that are bad emailers, and you get a faster approach that way too.
I do that with Zillow leads too. If I have Zillow leads, I'll just screenshot a Zillow thing and text it over to them. What do you think of this? So some people, I like text a lot more than email, but I agree with you. If it's investment properties and you want to send like details, usually email is helpful.
If you guys don't have the MLS Touch app, I highly encourage everyone to download that. That way you don't have to print things out, go into properties, you get everything at your fingertips.
Also a lifesaver if someone requests a follow-up tour with a property that you don't know about, because if you want to hop on and like you say, yeah, I could take you there, and you don't know what the showing instructions are, like you can find them out on your drive instead of trying to like pop on to like the website. It's way faster. Yeah, I like that a lot better.
I think on Real Scout, you can also send text message direct via.
On Real Scout, you can send text too? Is
Yep.
that what you said, Cameron? Oh, sweet.
Yep.
I didn't know that. I thought it was email only. All right, anyone find a property that would be a good 1031 exchange? I think in my market, and I say this all the time, but the average single family home and the average fourplex cost the same amount of money to purchase, but one of them will give you about $100,000 a year in gross rental, and the other one will give you like $30,000 a year in a gross rent. And so I think the 1031 conversation is like really easy to have with people. We like on this team, because we have the property management side, like we can actually help people expand their portfolio with no additional headaches. So many times, like the pushback that I get from a 1031 exchange with someone is they're like, I don't want 4 tenants. I'm having a hard enough time with 1 tenant. And so there's the opening to say like, well, how about I can do that and you don't have to manage anybody, right? And you can still make money while paying management fees. And I think it's just like such a thing that we are really uniquely positioned to help people with. So give me just a couple minutes. I'll find a good fourplex. There's very few realtors that have a lot of property management experience, and very few property managers that have good real estate experience. And there's a lot of them that do a little bit of both, but they're usually one and then they tiptoe a little bit in the other. And we actually have like a large company behind us for the property management side that we can really speak to in that rental experience. Tucker shared a fourplex.
Guys, really, this one should be the easiest one of all, because all you have to do is go into any real estate search engine, look at multifamilies, put in a price parameter, and just choose one option, put in, 900,000 to 1.1. Almost any option will work there. Look at the map view and choose one in the general geographic location that they're looking or ideally want to be. And I guarantee it's better than a single family home.
100%. And that's the conversation you can have on the FRBOs too. It's like, hey, we specialize in helping people do this. Tucker, that property you just dropped in there is amazing, man. In place, 9.4% cap rate. That's nuts.
I know. I got a guy I'm trying to push on it right now to do it. He's got one listed for rent, and it would be a perfect property from 1031.
What's the matter with this thing? Is it a murder site? What's going on?
Dude, click the link in the chat, Kevin. It actually like it looks nice. It's in a good area.
I am. I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
It's
great.
It's a decent area. I feel like you get like good always tenants because USC is right there, so that's good too. But I guess people don't like the Section 8 tenants right now.
Section 8 tenants are great.
That's what I figured.
Yeah. My favorite line when people are looking at like locations is like, where I'll move my family and where I'll move my money are two different places. Like I'll invest if it makes good money. Some of the markets where you have like, not as great like neighborhoods are better rentals because the cost to buy and the price for rent are different. And then a lot of times it's working class communities where you have people that are longer term tenants that pay their rent. And I was walking through with the property owner in Oakland like a while back, and he owns like 800 units in Oakland. And he was telling me they have a lot of Section 8 tenants. And one requirement he has is that everyone has to have a job who lives there. And the reason is because people that have jobs aren't sitting around the property causing problems. Like they're out of work and they come home tired. And I thought that was a great That's just explaining to me why he loved working class tenants, and I thought that was a really good point. That's a really solid fourplex. You should if I was in that area, I would hop on that. Kevin shared one in Watsonville. I think Watsonville's a great place to find properties. And then Rebecca shared one, a triplex in Modesto. Yeah, I think like Kevin said, the 1031 exchange should be the easiest one to find because every single multifamily property, unless they're like really low on their rents, is going to perform better than a single family home. And if you're able to find one that's a fourplex or below, it's not getting in commercial territory, which scares off some people sometimes. So it's still a residential loan. If you're getting a loan, it's still a residential property. We can help you with the property management services. Like this is one that I like would lean on like super heavily when you talk to people. And when you have that conversation with like IP leads and different people on expanding their portfolios, like this is something that you can help them. You can do every step of the process for them. You can find the property, you can manage the property, you can help them sell their existing property, like you can help them buy their next property. Like that is everything they need to do to just multiply their income, and they sit back and they just sign some documents and say yes. Like that's a really good value prop that we have as agents that a lot of people don't have. Kevin, how has like 1031s played into your career from when you first started, 13 years ago calling FRBOs to now? Like has helping owners expand their portfolio through 1031s like been a big part of like what got you to where you were at?
Yeah, it's hugely advantageous just for the simple fact of it's a great way to get into listing properties. Because a lot of people first in their career, they're like, I don't know how the hell I'm going to get my first listing. Either, I'm waiting for my aunt to die so I can sell her house. Like, obviously not that extreme, but it's a hard avenue to get into listings and to break that segment of the market. So if you can approach somebody and be like, hey, you're sitting there with a house that's, let's just say, worth $2 million, but it's only making, $4,000 a month in rent. But if we were to sell that house and go buy a $2 million fourplex, that thing's going to spit off, let's just call it $12,000 a month, $10,000 a month. It's like, would it be something you're interested in doing? Absolutely. Well, I'm the one that told you about it. I'm the one that's going to see this process through. And then eventually you'll start getting a reputation for knowing how to do a 1031. And someone will say, hey, I heard about a 1031. Oh, great. I do 6 or 7 of these a year. I'm super comfortable with it. And all of a sudden, boom, you've just locked in you don't do anything for the 1031 exchange other than follow a timeline and introduce them to a 1031 exchange company. It's not like it makes the deal any sort of harder or anything like that. But the fact that you have experience with it over time, people will hire you specifically because you have experience with it. It's just a huge avenue of a growth multiplier of your career.
And I think to your point about like not having to do anything extra, like the timelines actually are super beneficial because now you sell a property for someone and then they have to buy something in the next 6 months. Like that's great. You unlocked a buyer like right there, an immediate buyer. Like there's a real need.
Well, and they have to name their targets within 45 days.
Yeah.
Realistically, at the 45-day mark, they should already be in escrow and a decision should have been made.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, you get to represent them on the sell. You get to represent them on the purchase. You get to bring them on as a management client every single time they do a 1031. Like that's a huge avenue for you. That's 3 sides of the transaction. You build out a little bit of a reputation as a seller's agent and a buyer's rep, but also someone who can help with what to the average consumer seems like a really challenging process. Like they've heard about it. It seems complex. It's a tax thing and all that. And it's really relatively simple. And, you have a 1031 intermediary who does like that whole process for you. So I would, like, it's something I want to make a very large part of my business. And if there's like one thing I would lean on that I think that we have like a unique opportunity to do as a team, it would be helping people with 1031 exchanges for sure.
100% agree with that sentiment.
All right. Well, I don't think we have really more time to add another type of investor persona on here. What I would do, and like kind of the goal of this was to give you a general idea of if you have people in your database who are interested in properties, like these are things that you could be doing daily. This is a way that you could identify properties for them. And then you see the way that like Kevin sends out a message, I send out a message, Alex was sending out messages. Like it's basically just giving out some details of a property, a little bit, a taste, not too much, and then asking if they want more information. And then if they do want more information, that's when you go and dig into it and like get the details. So you don't have to spend an hour looking at a property before you send it to somebody. You can see like one thing that makes it a good fit. Like I have one guy who wants to find properties that are underbuilt in a good school area, and he'll add square footage to it. So when I see that, if I see a house that's on a 6,000 square foot lot and it's under 1,200 square feet, that's a deal for him. That's it. Send it over to him. Do you like this one or not? And if he doesn't like it, send him the next one. They want deal flow. And so your job is to be the person that finds it. And there's so many different ways that you can find properties for people. So hopefully this was of value to you. I mean, you can take some properties that you took a look at and shoot them out to some investors and start generating some traction. Anyone have any questions or anything that they like to go over or troubleshoot before we hop off surrounding this topic?
Yeah, I want to know how. What do you think I should do to push this guy over the edge to convince him to sell his home in 1031? He's got about $500K in equity, and he's only looking. The property value is about 900, and he's looking for $4K in rent. So it's I kind of broke it down, and after everything, he's cash flowing 640 a month on that rental. And then if he were to 1031 of that property I just sent in, even with including management, all maintenance, CapEx and vacancy stuff, he's cash flowing 34. So it's such an easy sell, but I don't know how to get him. He's answered the phone twice. And then the first time he was maybe it's time to do my first 1031. And then the second time he was busy, and he was send me an email asking to find time, and he's opened it twice, but he hasn't gotten back to me, and that was on Monday. So I want to do something now.
If you're looking for a grand move that you might lose them, be listen, I have a plan and I need you to trust me. I'm going to send you over an offer contingent upon for this new place, contingent upon the sale of yours. I am confident if I can lock this one up into escrow, I can get your other place sold. It's not going to cost you anything unless I pull it off. The DocuSign is going to be in your inbox in 40 minutes. And you could just send him the freaking offer and leverage it that way. And then, if he says, you can then say, hey, if he says I'm not ready yet, well, look it over. How does the framework of this offer look to you? Because I'm going to be able to pull this off and it's not going to cost you anything.
No, I like that. It's bold.
I would escalate.
So say it again, exactly what you're telling me I should say.
I would say, hey, I need you to trust me on this one, but I know this is too good of a deal for you to pass up. I'm going to send you over an offer contingent upon the sale of your house. And if we can get them to accept this, we're going to lock up the rights to buy it so no one else can. I'm confident I'm going to pull this. I can pull this off for you, and it's not going to cost you anything unless I do.
Love it. And would you add in there that this is going to take him from making $600 a month to $3,400 a month?
I mean, of course, but I'm pretty sure that Tucker's
have you shared that already?
Abundantly clear.
Yeah, I ran him over the numbers over the phone. I was like, dude, I got a great one for you. And he was in a rush. So I almost want to send him an email with literally a breakdown of what he's paying, because I can see all his property taxes, mortgage, all that, and what his net is, and then show him the same thing for the other property as well, just kind of pique his interest. And I think he would give me a call. Because he was I'll try to find some time this week, but he just didn't.
If he's so freaking busy right now, one of the problems probably is that, yes, he might fundamentally agree that it's a good thing to do and it would be a great idea, but he probably doesn't care enough about this. He's probably got a million other projects and problems, and this is just so far down the priority list. So make it easy on him. So that's how I would probably do it. Be dude, I got you handled. This is not going to require a ton of work from you. Just let me cook and I'll make you a killer meal. That needs to be your messaging. It's not going to be a huge problem for you. I'm going to do the heavy lifting, and it's not going to cost you anything until I pull it off.
Yeah. I mean, this is his first investment property. He lived in it, made it a rental, did it for a year. Now it's back on market, and he lives in Long Beach, and it's up in Sylmar. So it's super far away from him, and he does management himself. So it's if we can bake in our own management into the cost and he's still netting that much more, it's dude, you literally step away from the table and you're making more money.
Yeah, who would say no to $2,800 more a month?
And
all they got to do is sign a piece of paper.
Yeah, so I really want to get this guy over the hump.
I think Kevin's approach is a really good one and a bold way to go about it. But yeah, you just go with confidence, right? It's a great deal. It's the right deal for him, and just push him to let you do it. And I like his approach. It's not going to cost you anything unless I pull it off.
Yeah, but do I even push for the meeting first, or or just be dude, let's just send the fucking offer in?
You already did try for the meeting and you already got shut down. Escalate.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And then if he asks for a meeting, like, well, slow down, like, let's go on a date before you pull my pin.
Yeah.
Then you got a meeting.
Yeah, exactly. If you're getting stonewalled from step 2, jump to step 3. Push it. Well, you have nothing to lose because you're already losing. So just swing for the fences and get a win.
Fair
I like
enough.
that. That's really good. All right. Anybody else got anything before we hop off? All right. Well, thanks everyone for your time today. Appreciate it. Hopefully this training was of some value, and hopefully you can take this and go and send out some properties to everybody. Let's get after it and get some properties under contract.